We'll talk about UML, Unified Modeling Language. This is something that people do ask in your job interviews and stuff like that, that you should know. Job description, the JDs typically ask for use cases at least. And BPMN is more for the business processes, workflows and stuff. So we'll talk about each of these. Why do we need to use these two? Basically, they're like notations. We've had a look at that yesterday. We were talking about the notations or the languages. So they're helpful to kind of create the models, whether it could be system model, logical model, conceptual models, or data models, physical aspects of it, like a diagram to depict the servers in the infrastructure. So that's called deployment diagram, component diagram to actually show you the various components in a technology space. How do they interface with each other? What are the kind of interfaces, the integration points, and so on and so forth, the data models, everything to do with that. You can create artifacts, architecture, you can create architectures, you can create block diagrams of different, what is in the front end, what is in the middleware, what's in the back end. You can use all of these different modeling languages and notations to represent that. Again, you can represent behavior. You can actually show you the structure. Structure is more of a static one, whereas behavior is more of a dynamic one. So we'll talk about the difference between behavioral and the structural ones in the next slide. In terms of diagrams, we can create, as Arvind was talking about, we've got multiple diagrams that we can try and create. You can use use cases, you can create activity diagrams, straight transition diagrams. All of these could be done with these, both of these languages and notations. Again, very helpful in the context of the work that we do. Again, I think it is important that we know about it. I think it would be good if we have a kind of a deep dive discussion so you know how to create a use case diagram. So we'll talk about that in the later parts of the workshops that we're going to have, deep dive sessions. And then we'll talk about UML, just a quick thing. Again, what UML is, it's a modeling language, as you know. You might see a single L in most of the things. That is a US spelling, where they just use single one, and then a double L is more of, so it's more of UK English. So pardon me on that kind of. So it's, as BAs, it's also important that we are aware of this as to which language we're using, which flavor. So just being conscious of that. And this is actually a specification from OMG. It was originally done by Three Amigos, as they're called, and then it has been taken over by Object Management Group. It's good for IT systems, any kind of IT system, application, mobile application, digital product, anything to do with platforms. It's fantastic language for that. And why do we need to use this for? Again, application architecture, structures, behaviors, business process. We can use some of the business process oriented called BAM, business activity modeling. We can use that UML as that for that one. And then we can use it for data as well. I've used a lot of Visio diagrams for depicting the data entities, the structures, the relationships between them, the multiplicities, and all that stuff. So in terms of the diagrams, so we've got different types of diagrams within UML. So there's a behavior set of diagrams, and then there's a structure diagrams. So behavior diagrams, as you would have noticed, is basically movement. It's basically something that represents a flow. So your activity diagram, for instance, is a behavior. You will be asked to actually create an activity diagram in some of the interviews if you're experienced BAs. I've actually taken quite a few tests when they recruit, and they do expect you to create some kind of use case diagrams, activity diagrams. Again, is it important? Is it mandatory? Depends on which level you're going, what kind of job it is, and all that. So. And then there is other things like interaction diagrams. So interaction diagrams, again, could be different types. It actually shows you the interaction amongst the components within a particular system. So if you have a server as a core application, and then you've got other interfaces between them, other kind of actors or other applications. So for example, your order management system is an application that you're developing. It needs to work with the SAP application that is already in there. And it also needs to work with the purchase management application. It also needs to work with the invoicing application. All of these different applications and systems that your existing business relies on, you need to be able to interact with those. And that's what is, we develop these kind of diagrams to depict that flow of messages, flow of interactions. Sequence diagram, again, is a sequence of how it all starts with, where does it start, where does it go? All of that could be done with a sequence diagram. Again, I don't want to delve deeper into this because it's not really the most important thing for you to work on, but you need to at least have a bit of an idea of what they're talking about. And then when it comes to the structure diagrams, you've got class diagram, very important when you're playing the role of an ITBA. You should be working with the developers, with the architects. So working on a class diagram really helpful. Again, we've got a component diagram. I talked about the components, different how they interact and interface with the other components. Object diagram is basically kind of an artifact from the class diagram. So it's more of an OOAD, object-oriented analysis and design. Again, very technical stuff. Don't want to batter you with that. Deployment, package, all of these are different diagrams that you can actually get to work with in the context of UML. And then composite structure. Again, don't want to get too much in details of all of those. So this is just a kind of a quick chart to actually show you what each of these diagrams is for, how they could be helpful for you. Something is between the system and the actors and the users, interactions among different components, more technical. So anyway, we will skip this, but I would share this with you if, for example, some of you might want to know a little bit more in detail. You can have a look. And the BPMN is similar, but it's more of a process oriented. So I'll not go too much into detail again because it's not relevant to all the BAs. More of steps and the workflows. It's used for transfer of messages and stuff like that. Again, a lot of different symbols that are used in that context.